brilliant, isn't it? It's 9:07 on a Friday morning. Don't know about you, but I'm getting more than a little bit excited at the prospect of a sleep-in tomorrow morning. Now, you've heard this morning discussion about where the border should be to limit the spread of COVID-19. Well, you're about to hear from one Riverina resident who just wants to throw it all out and redraw the state boundaries. David Landini has stood in the past as an independent candidate for Murray, and he's now starting a new political party called the Riverina State Party. David, good morning.
Good morning, Sally.
David, what would you like to see happen?
What I'd like to see, Sally, is the Riverina, and when I say the Riverina, that is basically the area west of the Great Dividing Range, the 8 electorates in New South Wales west of the Great Dividing Range, separated from New South Wales into a separate state called the Riverina, of course. And I'd like to see that because we have in the inland areas, we have very, very different economies, a lot of different financial interests to the people on the coastal area of New South Wales. But because New South Wales has a domination, and actually a super-domination of the state by the people in Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong, simply because that's where the vast bulk of the population is, there are decisions made there that are very, very bad for the people in the Riverina, particularly, most obviously the irrigation areas of the Riverina, but not only the irrigation type industries, but all primary resource-based industries in New South Wales are being negatively affected by decisions made in Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong. But because there's a super-domination, and it's a super-domination, it's not just a domination, because of the super-domination of Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong, we can't do anything about it. We simply don't have the numbers in the New South Wales Parliament, west of the Great Dividing Range, to have any effect at all on the decisions that are made in New South Wales. And we've seen most obviously the water debacle, and it's a complete and utter debacle, where we have a situation where, like, irrigation is a very, very important industry in the Riverina, but it's basically being shut down. And most obviously, the latest water allocations that come out, 0% for farmers in the Murray irrigation area, third year in a row, no water. Now that's New South Wales in action. Now, that is, in my opinion, that is not totally unsatisfactory, and it's the third year in a row. This is not just a one-off.
To be fair, though, that there would be a divergence of opinion over and across rural Western New South Wales around water use and around water sharing. It's not a monoculture west of the Great Dividing Range. There are various views on this, aren't there?
Yeah, that's right. There's various views, but most of them, the vast majority, would be in support of using water for irrigation. But it's not just water. It's also the timber industry, for example. Like, the economy west of the Great Dividing Range is really a natural resource-based economy. You've got cities like Wagga that does have a lot of public expenditure, a lot of public infrastructure in there, but the vast majority of the rest of the state is not. It's based on agriculture and primary resource-based industries. Now, and just for example, the timber industry in New South Wales, and I hope I'm not sort of getting a bit specific here, but the timber industry in New South Wales it's on the chopping block right now, and I think most of the people in the timber industry understand that. We've seen in Victoria where the Victorian state government recently they're prohibiting native timber harvesting entirely over, I think it's over a 10-year period. Now, New South Wales is poised to do something very, very similar to that, and of course that will put a lot of people out of work. So you've got water, there's timber, there's a lot of restrictions and so forth on agricultural practices that limit the production of wealth in this area. And of course, you take the wealth production out, you take the jobs out, you take the people out. And we've seen in New South Wales in the western part of New South Wales, there's a stagnation of the entire state, if not a decline, and it's caused by laws and so forth made
and drought.
In Wollongong.
And drought.
Well, the great thing is, Sally, we have our forefathers put in a magnificent irrigation system. It's absolutely magnificent. It's as good, or if not better, than any in the world, to drought-proof the Riverina. And
to be fair, though, David, the water does have to be there, and we're several years into a Murray-Darling Basin plan, and it would be fairly widely recognised that a lot of the problems that we're seeing at the moment in the Murray-Darling Basin are driven by the fact that we've just come out of a long drought. I appreciate what you're saying about the needs for rural New South Wales and Western New South Wales agricultural interests to be represented, but surely a thorn in the burr in the blanket of your plan to separate or secede from New South Wales would lie in the fact that the very basis of the Australian Constitution revolves around the fact that New South Wales is one of the signatories to the Federation, and I don't know that you'll very easily be able to get around something like that, will you?
Well, yeah, that's very interesting, Sally, but the first thing, when Australia was federated in 1901, the founders, when they drew up the Constitution, they provided for the formation of new states, because at the time they thought, well, it's very likely that there will be states formed in the future, and Section 124 is specifically dedicated to that provision, and it's extremely simple. The only requirement to form a new state is the consent of the Parliament of the affected state, which is the Parliament of New South Wales in the case of the Riverina.
So then you're thinking that the Parliament of New South Wales is going to agree to the western part of New South Wales seceding and taking away, from the New South Wales economy, all of those tax benefits and so forth. Would you not think that's a bit unlikely?
I think it's extremely likely, and in fact I'm pretty certain it will happen, because, Sally, it's not a case of, this is actually a case of necessity. It's not a case of, gee, I like that, sounds like, that's a really good idea, or that's a nice name. It's actually a case of necessity. Now, as I said before, we're in the Riverina, and then the whole west of the state, except for cities like Wagga that has a massive amount of public money spent in there via the infrastructure that's in there, the Air Force Base, Army Base, University, Base Hospital, etc. But the rest of the state is in stagnation, and you can look at that, and that stagnation can be measured in a couple of ways. You can measure it. You can measure it in the numbers. You can see it. There's a huge decline in the wealth production in those areas. But more importantly, you can see it in the people. You can see it in the people, the stagnation of the town populations or decline in town populations. You can see it in the football clubs that fold or amalgamate because there's no young men there left to play.
But this is, to be fair, David, that is being driven by the fact that in agriculture you're getting more and more companies, big companies, buying up, the mechanisation of the workforce and all of that sort of thing. So there are some economic truisms there that you just can't fight against. We are going to run up against a time problem here, but you have stood as an independent candidate for Murray in the past. Why specifically do you think this will work this time?
It will work because it's a necessity. We've got two options, Sally, this side of the Great Dividing Range, west of the Great Dividing Range. We can either dry up and blow away, or we can separate from New South Wales. Now, they're the two options we've got. Now, at the moment, we're in the dry up and blow away stage, and that is extremely traumatic for the people out here. And look, I don't want to sort of harp on about water, because water is a big problem. But what I'm pointing out to people and to everyone that's interested is that there's a political problem in New South Wales, and the problem is the super-domination, not just a domination, a super-domination of the population in Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong. And they make decisions continually that are very, very bad for the people west of the Great Dividing Range, particularly most obviously the irrigation industry, but there's the timber industry. You can go to the mining industry. You can go to any natural resource-based industry in New South Wales, and these decisions are very, very, very bad for people in those industries. So,
yeah, David, we might have to leave it there. But thank you for your time this morning, and I'll keep in touch with you as this develops.
That'd be most happy to, Sally. That'd be great.
David Landini there, talking about forming a new political party, and he's starting the Riverina State Party with the objective to secede from the rest of New South Wales. 17 minutes past 9 on ABC Riverina. This is a personal favourite of mine. It's a great version of a lovely song.